Hey guys, Deslater Magic here, and since this is, I believe, video number 1294, give or take, depending upon how you measure it, I figured I ought to hit up the topic that everybody's been asking for the last 2.5 years. Should the reserve list be abolished? Should it be gotten rid of? Should Wizards ignore it and just reprint all these, couple $100 cards? Well, instead of being some douchey TV documentary where I reveal my conclusion at the end, I'm going to reveal it right now. I don't need to trick people into watching to the end of my video. If the video is good, you'll watch it. If it's not, you won't. Simple. I don't need some gimmicky hook to make you watch 10 minutes. Here is my official conclusion on whether or not they should get rid of the reserve list. If the answer is yes, there are massive, massive problems with that. And if the answer is no, then we'll continue to see the problems that we're seeing right now. So which side am I picking? Neither. The answer is that there is no way out of this. There is no solution. The actual answer is they never should have done it in the first place. That is the correct answer. You know who's on my side? Wizard staff. Ask them. Seriously, every comment I've ever heard from a staff member about the reserve list when they choose to talk about it is, it was a mistake. They have openly admitted this in articles on their website, that it was not, it didn't have much foresight. They basically just didn't know what they were doing in 96, didn't know the game would last this long, etc., etc., etc. They couldn't see into the future. They didn't think it would become this much of a problem, and so on. They didn't see it coming, but in hindsight, it was a mistake. That is what their general narrative is. So my conclusion is there is no solution at all. This is a disaster, and they never should have done it in the first place. That is my conclusion. Okay, if you don't like that answer, to be more specific, no matter what they do, no matter which way they go with it, it would be a disaster, so I do not care which way they go with it. If they maintain it forever until certain formats are unplayable, wonderful. If they cause the biggest lawsuit in history, piss everybody off, and destroy probably at this point, tens of millions of dollars worth of card value, I would say, that would be a disaster too. So disaster or disaster? I don't care. I don't even have an opinion. I don't even lean one way or the other. I mean, my ongoing opinion just in general has been make the game playable by the people who want to play it. So I guess I maybe would lean towards reprint it. But honestly, really, truly, sincerely, I don't care. And no matter what they do, it wouldn't work. So kind of a moot point, don't you think? So people who are saying they should reprint it, you're wrong. And people who are saying they shouldn't reprint it, you're wrong. Neither is a good idea. Neither is sustainable. Neither will work. It's just like when people talk about stopping mass shootings. There's nothing you can do. There is no solution. There is no way to prevent them. No amount of banning guns, weapons, this, that, anything, toddler-proofing the whole world, getting rid of, there's acid attacks, knife attacks, bombings, trucks, vehicles. You'd have to, ban every object capable of having, inertial energy. A baseball bat, a barbell, a screwdriver, you could kill anybody with anything. There is no solution other than, psychic powers or a time machine. Newsflash, I know you don't want to hear it, but sometimes there is no solution. And in this case, there is no solution with the reserve list. Anyone telling you different is wrong. I don't care which one of the two sides they're on. So here's my evidence to support it, but I should probably start with, what is the reserve list? Probably could have said that before. It's, 500 or so, something like that, cards that they said in 1996 they will not reprint. I had trouble finding any kind of, factually accurate account of why they did this, but it seems like the general consensus is it was a knee-jerk overreaction. Never seen that from Wizards. It's almost like they have a history of doing that. But anyway, yeah, it was a mistake, basically, and it was in response to them reprinting a whole bunch of hyper-expensive cards. They effectively devalued a ton of cards, destroyed a ton of value, card shops were mad and players were mad. Apparently people even back then didn't understand the concept of you're spending money. You're not investing money while also playing with the cards and then, you're guaranteed a portion of your money back or more. No. Even people opening 100 boxes and sitting on the singles these are going to be worth a whole bunch in 5 to 10 years. Nobody guaranteed you that you can make money on that. It's called a risk, an investment, a gamble. Well, not anymore, because people were threatening to never play the game again. Sales were down. People were just absolutely livid over this, I guess. At least this is multiple stories that I heard. So they said, okay, 1996, March 4th, we are not going to reprint the following. Boom. If you hold these, they will basically only go up in value unless they fall out of popularity, then they'll go down, I guess. But either way, the supply is not getting any bigger. Well, fast forward 22 years and whoopsies, there's not enough cards to go around. And that really is just the core of the problem. People say it's too high of prices. Well, not really. If 10,000 people want a card and there's only 1,000 copies, great. People bid it up until only the most, rich douchebags can afford it. But no amount of money is going to magically make there be 2,000 of the cards. So no matter, I mean, you could throw $1 million at the situation. There's still only 1,000 to go around. You can't make 1,000 cards stretch out to 1,000 or 10,000 people. It can't be done. So it's not really card prices. It's availability. It's supply. It's the sheer number, the number that are around versus the number of people who want it. And there is no fix for this. So artificial scarcity and prices going insane, that's like the number one complaint. Number two, and this isn't really a complaint, but it's a problem, is counterfeits. If you don't give the people what they want, somebody's gonna, try and give them something pretty damn close. And I heard that it's widespread that people are going to legacy and vintage tournaments with counterfeits and just crossing their fingers and hoping they don't get caught. I mean, they're showing up with basically a $30 deck. Other people are showing up with a $10,000 deck, and they're winning cash prizes with it, which is bad. And I've never heard of like the judges checking every card, unsleeving it, taking out like a microscope lens or whatever, and looking at the cards and like sniffing them and bending them and all this crap for every player and every card in every deck. If something was blatantly fake, I guess you could call the judge over and be like, this is fake, check it. And if they're right, they will get kicked out of the tournament. I guarantee it. But the best thing is everybody can feign ignorance. I don't know. I bought this from blah, blah, blah. I bought this online. I bought this from this person. I traded with my friend. They assured me it was real. They assured me they opened it themselves in person 20 years ago. And I wouldn't blame the average person for not being able to tell the difference between the modern counterfeits and the real cards. That said, anybody, Rudy from Alpha Investments, oh, excuse me, must have been something in my throat. Anybody saying that they can't tell the difference or they have trouble or, oh my God, they're basically flawless is just alarmist, like headline bait, clickbait, just bullshit. I can tell the difference, and I don't typically deal in cards older than 8th edition, really. That said, I've seen the counterfeits and I've seen the real ones, and I wouldn't say it was clear as day. I've seen worse counterfeits, but if you have 30 seconds, you could tell if it's real or not. Let me just put it that way. And a little bit of equipment and basic know-how. Oh, and the ways to tell if they're real or not are non-destructive. So the whole, oh my God, we'll get to the point where we can't tell the difference. No, that'll never happen. It's impossible. I mean, just the cards themselves are like 20-something years old. You can't fake that. If you wanted to make one fake that would fool everybody, it would probably cost you $1,000 in material, time, and equipment. So, you can't do it on mass scale. Just can't be done. And these days, I heard that nobody's been able to convincingly counterfeit the stamp on the bottom, the little foil stamp. People have gotten close and, passing glance might think it's real, but it's not. I mean, you can check. You can literally take any card and check if it's real or not still. Do not believe people saying otherwise. So that said, I mean, they're getting passed around and people are getting screwed. People will pay $150 for a card, $300, $400 for a card, and it's not real. They didn't know it. Maybe the seller didn't know it. Maybe the person who sold it to the seller didn't know it. I mean, who knows how many people got scammed? And then if somebody finds out it's a fake, I mean, who's going to rip it up on the spot? You're going to try to move it to somebody else, go somewhere where the people don't know you and try and trade it away. I mean, I've heard stories. In fact, oh my God, do I have a story that I am legally required to not tell you. Let's just say somebody I know and I hate more than anybody else in the community, number one scumbag in all of Magic. He lives in Wisconsin. That's all the details I can provide you. One of his, we'll say, associates sold one of my friends thousands of dollars in counterfeits. And to say that this person would be able to tell the difference and know better would be an understatement. There's still pending charges. So, okay, Wizards decides we're not going to reprint these anymore. Fast forward 2 decades, there's criminal charges and court cases going on, and people are going to jail and getting sued in civil court and criminal court over this. So to say that it turned into a bit of a situation, yeah, I'd say that's pretty accurate. The state of the reserve list right now is a disaster, actually. That's the way I would put it. So let's talk about the end game here, okay? They decide to never reprint it. These cards disappear, they get lost, they get damaged, they leave the market, people quit the game and hold on to the cards, just whatever. The supply goes down, 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 down to the point where from any source, any store, no matter what, you cannot find that card. So if you want to play Vintage or Legacy or certain Commander decks or whatever, you literally cannot find the card, you cannot play that deck, and you effectively cannot play that format unless you choose a different deck. Simple as that. Oh, and in that case, counterfeits would be everywhere. You would just assume that any given card of that card is a counterfeit. Just right off the bat, just assume it's a counterfeit, just based on sheer numbers, because for every real one, there'll be 100 counterfeits, and, because of it, stores would just stop buying them on buy lists. They would stop selling them because nobody would trust them, and it would just be done and over with for these 500 something cards or whatever. So Legacy and Vintage would just be unplayable. Literally nobody would show up to the tournaments. I mean, instead of like, 500 people, you get 5 that still have an intact provable deck or something. So Wizards would just let the formats die, and then when the formats die, the cards would get devalued because nobody wants them. Only collectors would want them. There is no more real intrinsic value to them. You don't buy them to play for cash prizes, although, I mean, like I said, 90% of people holding them right now are just idiot investors selling them to each other once they realize that there is no demand for these at all, so the prices are inflated 10 times over what they're supposed to be, or we're going to see a bit of a crash. That's the funny thing. People say if they never get rid of the reserve list, the cards will just keep going up in price. No, there's a limit. There's a wall there. Trust me. So that's the end game. They just let that collapse. They just let it become an end game disaster. They let it get as bad as it can get and then still don't fix it. And just, you can't play those decks. You can't play the formats. Simple as that. The cards just don't exist anymore, and if you have one, it's probably a counterfeit. Let's go the other way with it. Tomorrow, they announced that the reserve list is gone. They're going to start reprinting stuff. And there goes the class action lawsuit. So the number one reason that people said that even if they wanted to, which some people at Wizards do want to, I would even dare say most of the people at Wizards want to reprint the reserve list, they are prevented from doing so because they made a promissory agreement and this promissory estoppel, blah, blah, blah. Let me break this down super simple. They, in no uncertain terms, make an official statement telling the customers one thing. Then they do something else. It's not quite false advertising, and it's not quite a breach of contract. Mostly because it wasn't advertising, it wasn't stated at the time the products were bought, it was stated later. It was not communicated directly to every single last person, and it's obviously not a breach of contract because some of the people are under 18, some of the people are not US citizens, just all these, it's not a contract. That's all I can say about it. Simple as that. Not a contract. Nobody signed anything, it wouldn't even be considered a verbal contract. But if NVIDIA tells me this is a 4 gigabyte card and it turns out it's a 3.5 gigabyte card, then I get a check in the mail for $50. Yes, that actually happened with GTX 970s. Have you heard about the lawsuit? NVIDIA paid out tens of millions of dollars over it. Actually got paid twice because I built my friend a computer. Now, this could be considered false advertising. It could be considered like 3 different things in that case. I think they all just came together and they just said, you know what, you owe money. But misrepresenting a product, that's like a whole different thing. Just a company at the end of the day saying this, and then people making financial and product decisions based on that, and then going back on it. In everybody's opinion, well, that's just lying. That's just a bad company. So what? They're dishonest. Whatever. They went back on what they said. Companies lie all the time. Who cares? Lying isn't illegal. Well, it turns out in some cases it is. So to be very, very, very clear, some lawyers say they would be in deep crap and they would lose instantly. And other lawyers say, no, this is nothing. The lawsuit would go nowhere. So would they automatically lose? Would they automatically win? No and no. So you work at Wizards. Okay, you might get sued for like $100 million and you might lose. You might not win. It might not be frivolous. You have a chance of losing in court. The people suing you are all millionaires holding these cards who are giant card investors, giant resellers. They have money for really good lawyers. They're going to drag this out. It's going to be expensive whether you win or lose. Would it even be worth the amount of money that you would make by reprinting these cards? Let me answer that. Yes, it actually would. I've done the math. They would make enough money to cover the lawsuit. Now, the funny thing is, if they reprinted these cards in any kind of significant volume, who the hell plays Vintage and Legacy? Nobody. Would anybody jump on it? No, it's a win on turn 2 coin flip who goes first garbage format. Most people could see both of them for what it is. Vintage is a joke. Legacy, okay, that occasionally can have some interaction and some thought. Vintage is just, did you pull the combo? Did you not? Did they stop it? Did they not? It's binary. You might as well just be playing rock, paper, scissors. And whoever goes first is like an 80% chance of winning. It's just a joke of a format. An absolute freaking joke. And then who else wants these cards? Commander. That's it. That's the entirety of the demand for these reserve list cards. That's it. I mean, collectors, I guess you would say. But collectors are a tiny portion of the market, and Commander players, well, let's start off by they don't need 4, they need 1. Now, if they reprinted some of the Power 9 in Standard and it was Standard legal for 2 years, that's a whole different level of demand. And honestly, they would almost have to do that. But also, some of those cards are horrifically unfair and game-breakingly not going to happen in today's Magic. Oh, and then that would put them in Modern and they basically just have to be insta-banned. Like, Black Lotus in Modern? No. Just no. There is no, oh, maybe it would, no. You know what? Maybe it wouldn't, because no. So if they reprinted it, it's like, how much money would they really make? Are they really reprinting $1,000 bills? No. Like, first of all, like I may have mentioned earlier, Alpha and Beta cards are worth a ton. The 3rd editions are not. I mean, they are significantly less, and that's the ones that people target to actually play with. So you reprint those, and you can see a $300 card hit $30 pretty easily and pretty quickly because there just is no demand. So would it even be a good idea? Maybe, maybe not. I still think that they would just get mountains of money, but it's not as high as you think. You can't take a $200-$300 card, reprint it, and have it still be worth $200 or $300. It just simply doesn't work that way. There's a reason they got to such a high price, and it's not exclusively demand. It is also the supply. So if they take, the supply and go 10x with it, oh boy, the market cannot absorb that, as they say. So a lot of people get caught up with the lawsuit thing. They said they can't ever do it because they'll get sued. End of story. Not on the table. Not an option. Okay, you people are wrong. Anybody spreading that rumor, you're wrong. They actually would have, I'd say, a 60 to 70% chance of winning in court from what I heard and what I read, and long videos and statements made by actual lawyers. By the way, my official opinion is Wizards of the Coast made that agreement. There is no Wizards of the Coast anymore. They got bought out by Hasbro. I don't know the nature of it, if they dissolved their company and sold the IP to them, if it's like a shell company now and they're like a holding company for them, and yet they are still a corporate entity and didn't change that much. Either way, I think that's some kind of out. It's like, we're not Wizards of the Coast, we're Hasbro. We kept the name, but it's just the nickname of our branch. We are Hasbro Incorporated. Like, they could just say that and be like, yeah, your agreement that you're talking about, you're referencing a company that doesn't exist anymore. I was going to say, it's like trying to sue Earthlink, but I just realized they're actually still around. Trying to sue Juno. Okay, I'm pretty sure Juno isn't around anymore. You can't sue them. I'm sure somebody bought the name and they're operating the name. There's some service out there called Juno. But guess what? I mean, it's like trying to sue AOL up until recently because they split off from Time Warner. So another bad example. But when AOL bought Time Warner, they're now Time Warner. I think Time Warner, I don't know. Honestly, I don't remember who bought who, but there was no more company called AOL. They operated under the name. That was the name of the product. But the company was gone. As far as I know, it works that way. All bets are off. That's it. I mean, I know because the company that I work for bought another company. We just had them shut it down and come work for us. And then we bought their inventory. And then we used their name. That's it. I mean, their company was gone. Somebody came back and tried to sue us for something that they did a year ago. And we said, hey, guess what? We're not them. We're us. We never stopped being us. And they're gone. The LLC was dissolved. If you had a claim against them, you legally had to put it in before their LLC was dissolved. Sorry. That I'm 100% sure of is how the law works, because that's how the law worked. The people couldn't sue us. And then the one guy quit, and then the other former owner got fired/arrested for stealing from us. I used to work for a company run by incompetent morons with no judge of character whatsoever. So that's my 2 cents. That's one out. I'm no legal professional. It's just I know precedent for it. And depending upon the terms and the exact nature of how they did this, the merger and the acquisition, whatever, that might be it. Also, nobody ever talks about this, okay? This is probably going to be news to you. They took cards off the reserve list and printed them again in 2002. They already edited it. They already went back on their agreement, as it were. Nobody sued them because nobody cared, because people wanted the damn cards. So they both reinforced the lawsuit and made precedent for people not caring about it. Basically, anybody who didn't sue them in 2002 when they went back on their agreement, their estoppel, whatever the hell, they have absolutely no legal right to sue them now if they go back in the reserve list. I'm pretty sure that's implied consent. Now, if you got into it and bought cards on the reserve list afterwards, you bought them from a third party, not Wizards. So you either missed your opportunity to sue them the first time, or you had no dealings with Wizards of the Coast. So that's another reason the lawsuit would fall apart, potentially. These are all gray area. They're not absolutes. It's just they're very, very big problems with the lawsuit. So guess why they made this decision in 2002, okay? Let me read what the wiki says. In 2002's revision, Wizards of the Coast decided no cards from the Mercadian Masks set and later sets would be reserved, which, good, they realized their mistake at that point. Commons and uncommons from limited edition were removed from the reserve list due to overwhelming public support for the change. People were like, oh my god, I can't get my hands on these cards. The prices are going through the roof. I can't even play the damn format. What the hell, Wizards? And so they're like, okay, fine, we'll take these off the reserve list. And then everybody was like, yay. Well, what the hell? Doesn't that sound kind of familiar? Like today, they're like, I'm not paying $300 for this goddamn card. What the hell? Reprint it, Wizards, to say that there's, quote, overwhelming public support for them to reprint the reserve list. Yeah, more so than even 2002. But like I said, the 1% of people that would give a crap and take issue with this are the rich douchebags who own $10 million worth of singles. The people who own these cards typically have money, and they just lost a bunch of money if they decide to reprint them. So they still would sue, it's just the vast majority of people are in favor of it, and the last time that happened, they changed it. But get this, Wizards made a statement, something to the effect of, in consideration of past commitments, in other words, acknowledging that they made a commitment and basically a contract, but not really, just at least like a statement that this is true to their customers. That's actually what estoppel means in Latin, by the way. They said, no other cards from now on will be removed from the list. So they simultaneously said, we acknowledge that we made a commitment to the customers and we are not going to violate that. Also, we're announcing that we're violating that and we're taking these cards off the reserve list. How the hell do you do both of those at the same time? Like, they're like acknowledging potential legal liability while also doing exactly what they would do to get sued. It's just so many people supported the decision and there wasn't enough people around there with enough interest to sue them, I guess. This time around, it's a little different. So that 2002 revision was insane. And I'm sure I got a couple details about it wrong because I'm reading up on a ton of like secondhand, somewhat contradictory accounts of how it went down. So now further court evidence here is the 2010 revision to the policy. And I actually read the whole thing. What the wiki says it says and what it actually says are two different things. But remember, Wizards can go back and, well, change things basically. Like, I mean, literally on their webpage. They said, okay, no more foils, no more premiums, no more limited editions, no more From the Vault, no more Judge promo, none of this. Because people were getting pissed about, I heard, like, certain Judge promos that were on the reserve list, but they're like, oh, well, it's not a real set, though. So they said no white border, no black border, no nothing. They still reserve the right to do gold bordered and oversized cards that are not legal in any format or any way. They also made it clear that not a damn word of this applies to online or any kind of virtual or digital cards at all. So that is nice because remember, 60% of their income comes from MTGO. Yeah. So that's another thing. Would they even bother with the paper card game and get in this big legal mess and piss off a certain portion of people and all that? Do they want the bad press just to make some money on some reprints? Or would they just say, screw it, we don't even make the majority of our money from paper. We'll just reprint them to death on MTGO, who cares? But in 2010, they reinforced, okay, here is a modern statement from Hasbro, because I believe they bought them before that. Hi, we're Hasbro Incorporated, and we're promising you, once again in writing, that we are not going to ever reprint these in any form. Here's our statement on it, our exact official company policy. Can they legally talk about something from back before they were Hasbro Incorporated? Who the hell knows? This is why it gets real damn messy. But I think that statement alone would get them into some serious deep water. What they should have done in 2010 is said, you know what? We know people are getting all pissy about us putting certain cards in like dual decks and stuff that were on the reserve list. I think that's what they were doing. Pretty sure Judge promos were involved too. Instead of doubling down and be like, nope, now we're going to reprint them. Never, because we got to make the secondary market happy, which was really their company policy in 2010. Now it's like, screw everything, screw everybody. Singles, holders, long-term investors, screw them. We want all the money. Why the hell should they make money? It's our game, it's our cards. We'll reprint whatever we want, however we want, in whatever volume we want. Let's do 2 masters a year. And by the way, if you haven't been paying attention, I support that completely. It is their card game, and the secondary market is just a lot of assholes, basically. It's just rich parasites trying to make money off the game, and nobody elected them the middlemen. They just have a credit card. I mean, they're just nothing. They're just wasting people's money, basically. Like, literally a credit card in a storage unit, and ta-da, you're a middleman, and you can start raking in 10, 20, 30% returns. Yeah, that's not toxic to the community or the economy at all, is it? So thankfully, in the last year, Wizards decided screw those people and just reprinted everything because who cares about, card values and long-term and making these tiny subset of people happy when they can make a lot of people happy and make a lot of money on these reprint sets and let people, actually play the game because that results in actual, maintenance of customers. If people can't afford to play Modern, they're just not going to play Modern. They're going to go somewhere else and play a different card game in some amount. Some percentage of people are going to do that. So, I mean, should they try to apply that to the reserve list? Well, like I said, Commander, Vintage, Legacy. Who even is that? Modern and Standard is pretty much what people play. And even with Commander's popularity, you can cut it right by 75% right off the bat because you only need 1 of every card, not 4. So it's really debatable about should they attempt to do this. Not even is it a good idea and what will happen. It's just should they do it? Would it really help people? Would it really help enough people to be worth all the hassle and the legal drama? I mean, if I was working at Wizards, I'd say no, just let it die. We made a mistake. Let's stick to it. Let's not try to make 2 mistakes and get sued and then lose a ton of money and have to pay all these singles holders. Just let it crash. If people are going to be that stupid and greedy and they're going to threaten to sue Wizards if they ever reprint these, if they ever go back on their decision for the second time, because they already did it in 2002. Well, then any format and any deck with these cards it's going to die and the value is going to tank and then they're going to lose all the money anyway. So just let it die. I mean, who needs these cards anyway? And I think that realistically, and based on any recent 2015 onward statement from the staff, they have no interest and no intent to ever reprint the reserve list, ever. They would let these formats die first. They would let the singles market collapse. Who cares? It was 93 through 96. They made a mistake, whatever. So my prediction is that they will not reprint it ever. I just don't see them, even in the next 10 years, doing it. I can't imagine them trying to do it. Nobody there thinks it's a good idea, and I think to them, the benefits don't outweigh the risks and the potential losses and everything. It's just easier and a better idea financially to just try to get people to play Modern, basically. So get ready for disastrous levels of counterfeits and the cards skyrocketing and just Legacy and Vintage getting kicked out of every tournament because of lack of, enough people. That's the future, but that's the situation they put themselves in by making that mistake in 96. So sometimes you make mistakes and you gotta live with them. And like I said earlier, the only way to fix it now is a time machine. Reprinting the reserve list is not fixing the problem. The problem is already the problem. So that is my official stance and my official opinion on it. I think anybody making a simpler assessment than this, like, yes, they should do it because the players. Well, great. That's one angle. You're not looking at the whole thing. And the real, true, and sincere solution is that there isn't one. There is no way out. There is no answer, so they're just going to take the safe and easy way and just secondary market to secondary market. We don't touch it. Who cares? Let it die. Let it collapse. And they are never going to reprint it. Trust me, they are never going to reprint the reserve list. There's plenty of other expensive crap they can print in Modern. They're never going to run out of cards and say, well, let's hit this as our last resort. I just don't see that happening. The accompanying lawsuit and legal fees wouldn't help. So that's all you need to know about it. The whole established setup of why everybody's on one side or the other, why Wizards has acted and hasn't acted, why they set it up in the first place, why it was a mistake, and why I think my prediction about the future is correct. So if you have any other questions, comments, anything, leave them down in the comments section below, and I will see you guys next video.